including this one. SMU Director of Athletics Rick Hart joins us on 365 Sports with us. What a week it's been for them. The announcement of the fundraising, $159 million, July 1st, the ACC. Rick, we've had you on before when there was a possibility. We even had you on back when there was even thoughts about maybe is there a chance that the Big 12 could be on the horizon. When you look at July 1st, do you circle that like a team does with a rival when the schedule comes out?
Yeah, well, first of all, appreciate y'all having me. Congrats on your growth that you were just talking about, and thanks for what you do to promote and celebrate sports in the great state of Texas. We appreciate it. July 1st will be, really the culmination of 35 years of investments and persistence, and and it'll be a surreal moment, the latest in a series of them. But that's when this will all be official and real, and we can't wait for 10 days from now when we're able to celebrate with Dallas and the SMU communities.
Rick, I drove by campus the other day on the way to Love Field, and a lot of construction going on around the stadium. I know you got a lot of projects going on. Can you just kind of speak to where you guys are? You got big opponents arriving here in the next few months. I know there's still a little bit of time, but just how do you feel about all the changes going on and preparing for this upcoming season?
Yeah, it's a daunting task, but it's one that is fueled by again, the energy of this opportunity and the moment, the enthusiasm of not just the SMU alumni and donors, but again, the Dallas community. So we're having a lot of fun with it. There is a lot of work to do. The construction, they say that if there's not a crane on campus that you're falling behind. And so, you got to continue to invest in facilities. The Weber End Zone Complex, which is what you see on Mockingbird, is a 190,000 square foot football operations building with about 1,200 all premium seats. A training table for all of our student athletes. It'll be state of the art. It'll benefit all 17 programs in some way. And, the timing of Gary Weber's investment, his $50 million gift to get that off the ground and make it possible, I think was one of the critical components to the invitation to the ACC. And so we'll move in at the end of July, and again, that'll continue to be a big key in our recruiting and in building a championship level football program as well.
I know that there's hunger to get into that conference, and there's been this long. You mentioned nearly 40 years. It's an obvious question, and I think I know the answer, but I have to ask the question: how much of that 159 do you think is attached because of what you're about to do and what conference you're about to enter?
Well, it's the reason for the record. No two ways about it. Again, the strength of our donor base has always been a differentiator for us and a competitive advantage. Our donors have always punched above our weight class and helped us to close the gap competitively so that we could, effort to compete nationally, which, by the way, I think we've done quite well across our 17 sports. Leading into the ACC, but this moment can't be replicated. And there was a sense and a belief that, when we achieved ACC membership and, as David Miller said, got back where we belong, that there would be an entirely different level, not just to the existing support base, but also many people who would just respond to the magnitude of the moment. And that's what occurred. I mean, 100 million of it can be directly attributed to the First Week Society. That's the group of individuals that within a week of the invitation on September 1st, 2023, pledged $100 million towards our competitiveness in the ACC.
So, you have all this construction, you have all this momentum. Do you have to – you were a North Carolina grad. It's been a long-time member of the ACC. You were at Oklahoma for, I think, 7 years or so before UT Chattanooga. You've been around SMU for quite some time. Do you still at times have to pinch yourself that this is happening?
Yes, absolutely. Again, so I've been at SMU for 12 years, and so I haven't been here obviously the entirety of this journey, but certainly long enough to feel and to appreciate, again, all of the little moments and big moments that made July 1st, 2024 a reality, and what it means to our community and to Mustangs everywhere. And so it's not lost on me. Again, I do pinch myself. I mentioned that it's still surreal at times. I think that's going to continue as we get into competition and we host our first men's soccer game against an ACC opponent, and then women's soccer, and then football, and then volleyball, and so on. Obviously, the September 28th game against Florida State, I think it's going to be a really special day on the Hilltop.
By the way, when you have that game, you need to make sure that you have private investigators watching for one of our co-hosts. He's on vacation. Paul Catalina is an FSU grad. You cannot, please, allow him in that stadium because he's like drooling over the opportunity.
Well, tell Paul if he just throw on an SMU hat, I'll host him in my suite.
Hey.
Oh, my God. You know what? I know he'll do that. He went to a KU men's basketball game with his wife, Amanda, and he's never had any alliance or allegiance to them, and he bought like a KU jersey and wore it, even though he covers Baylor here, but we cover all of the Big 12 and also college athletics, as you mentioned earlier. I will absolutely pass that along to him. With the
it's just going to have to be a Mustang for the day. That's all we ask. He doesn't have to be. You don't have to be his number one team or his favorite team all the time. But for that day, he's got to be a Mustang.
I love it. I love it. All right.
Rhett Lashley's a terrific coach. We've had him on the show and really appreciate every time that he's joined us. There's obviously a lot of juice when it comes to the football program right now. How much more energy do you feel, not just in terms with the football program, but in recruiting and the attention and maybe some of the reception that football and other sports are starting to receive, knowing the affiliation that you're now going to be a part of? Is there a noticeable difference already in that regard, much like there is with, let's say, donors and things of that nature?
There is. That's another one where I'll tell you, we always felt that the one thing we were missing was this affiliation with the ACC or, a power conference, so to speak. And it was really the only limiter or limiting factor in our recruiting success, our competitive success, our ability to attract and retain the best coaches, et cetera. And that's proven out. I mean, I think it's well documented, and you asked specifically about football, so I'll talk about that. One of the ways that we have strung together 10-win seasons and a national ranking to end the season and some big-time wins. We're the winningest program in the state of Texas the last 5 years in the sport of football, has been through transfers who are from the area, but out of high school, for various reasons, didn't commit to us. We were in the mix. We could get in their final 3 or 5. But at the end of the day, they felt like they wanted to play against, quote, the best, and they wanted to play in one of those conferences. And now what we're seeing across all our sports is that those young men and women are now saying they want to come to SMU out of high school because they don't feel like they need to leave Dallas to compete against the best and at the highest level. So it's a game changer in every way.
Rick, as you have this celebration, and really it's been ongoing, as you mentioned, since it was confirmed that you were going to join the ACC. As you know, the landscape in college athletics is crazy, not just NIL, the portal, et cetera, now revenue sharing. How much do you have to keep your eye on what is happening in the courtroom right now with the ACC, Florida State, and others?
Well, we're certainly paying attention nationally, and I'm part of those conversations relative to the national litigation, the House settlement, and by extension the settlement potentially of several other cases, and how we're going to need to be thinking about that, how we're going to need to be structured, how we're going to need to resource it. So those conversations are ongoing. Obviously, there's a lack of clarity, but there's a lot of scenario planning going on, and we'll be ready. We'll adapt, and as we've done and continue to do, we'll make sure that SMU is well positioned and that we're ready to compete at that level. Relative specifically to Clemson and Florida State and the ACC, I don't really expend any energy on that. number one, I have no control over it. But secondly, we're excited. I mean, that has not detracted one bit from our enthusiasm about membership in the ACC or what we think that will mean, not just to our athletics program, but to the university to affiliate with those schools. So we feel like, hopefully this group will be together a long time and it'll stay intact. But should something happen down the road, again, we feel like we're well positioned. We're part of that Power Four group now, and we're focused on SMU and what we need to be doing to compete at that level and to prove that we belong.
After being a part of Group of Five or whatever, again, other conferences outside of the what they called the Power Five, now Power Four, as you're a part of that, with how things have changed, with revenue sharing, can you, and it's a challenge even for those who are the alphas, who have all the money in the world, how difficult do you think it would have been to go into the next part of SMU football or athletics if you weren't a part of the ACC with the revenue?
Well, we talk about that pretty regularly, and the fact that while we are going to have some significant challenges ahead and some things that are going to require some tough decisions and probably, some different ways to approach what we do and how we impact young men and women, boy, we sure are glad that those are the things that we're working on and talking about and efforting towards, because that's the group we want to affiliate with, and those are the types of problems we want to be bringing solutions to. So, again, we understand change is coming. It's constant. We understand that there are threats to, the model long term and conference affiliation that you alluded to earlier, perhaps. But we are just so grateful because now that we're part of those 70 schools, we feel like that has staying power and that's an environment that we can be very competitive in over both the short and the long term. So, we got in just in the nick of time is how we talk about it.
I've even seen some quotes from an AD or two that are a part of what you could consider, alpha. I mean, they have they have all the money, the logo and all of that. And yet sometimes I see them say that they're concerned about making sure they can keep all their other sports afloat. And yet a lot of it's because a lot of them have moved and have created a lot of this where we are today. Will you do everything possible to make sure, and with the $159 million and whatever else, that SMU stays its course with what you have across the board right now that you mentioned that's been so successful?
Yes. I mean, again, we're going to have to prioritize, and we're going to have to, do some things differently, as will everyone. So, when you talk about even the biggest brands with the most money, and they're still contemplating how they're going to do this, how they're going to resource it. The reality is all of us have allocated 100% of the resources we have available to us today. And the cost of doing business goes up every year. And 22% of everything we do today and going forward is going to be allocated to the student athletes. And so that means that we're going to have to reprioritize. We're going to have to look at how we can be more efficient from an expense perspective. We're going to have to generate additional revenues. The $159 million is critical, but it's also, we can't stop there. We need people to give. We need people to buy tickets. We need people to bring a friend. We need people to continue to challenge themselves and stretch themselves to support us, and we need to bring new people to the table. I think the key for us is going to be, relatively speaking, when the dust settles and we have clarity around what does that look like for Florida State, for Clemson, for North Carolina, for Duke, for Wake Forest, for Virginia, et cetera, that we need to be able to compare favorably and to compete in that environment, and relatively speaking, to provide an experience to our student athletes and benefits to our student athletes and compensation to our coaches and a quality of life to our staff that is on par with all those other schools.
Last thing, Rick, and again, man, it's always great to have you on the show. You've always been there when we've asked, and we do appreciate it with all that's going on, not to mention you try to get home, I'm sure, is once the announcement was made, Cal, Stanford, SMU, and then some of the details about the money, the TV revenue, and whatever, and then it came back and it kind of adjusted itself where you are going to get some of that money. How important was that to even win that little battle right there, even though all of them are big battles?
Yeah, like every dollar counts, and I'm on my way now to an event with our men's basketball coach and some former players and some donors. So again, the engagement level, the revenue piece never stops. But it was big, and the key there was to ensure that we were going to, at least from the very beginning, not take a step back from a revenue perspective, and then going forward. Again, the opportunities and or the guaranteed revenues were going to move us in a positive direction. People have said, well, gosh, you gave up all that money. We didn't give up any money. We were never going to have that money. We were never going to get that money in any other scenario. And so what we did is, again, there are positive revenues that will accrue to us, but the opportunities that we have now to go out and significantly generate revenues in other categories is unmatched. There's nothing else we could have done to bring these opportunities to bear, not just for athletics, but again for SMU. And so we view it as an investment. We view it as a net positive from a revenue perspective, both short term and long term. And then again, thanks to our generous donors, kind of where we started this conversation, they're helping us close the gap competitively in those buckets that for a few years we won't participate in.
Last thing, can you now also be a voice of reason and knowledge to all of those who are the FBS that are in the Power Four conferences about what the Group of Five or other schools still need to make sure that you've been a part of that and that they are taken care of?
Well, perhaps. I mean, I haven't thought through that part of it, but I will say that one of the things that I've tried and will continue to effort to bring to the ACC and to that group of athletics directors and leaders is, I think, a perspective that this is an awesome thing. Mm-hmm. And this is a powerful thing, and we are all incredibly fortunate to be a part of it and to affiliate with one another. And yes, there are challenges, and again, we can go back through all that stuff, but everybody has those. We're no different. There's only one that's ever going to have the most. Right now, that's not us. But let's not lose sight of the incredible conference that we're a part of, the success that it's already having and can have in the future. And let's come together to ensure that that future is healthy and that we continue to grow and to advance our position among all the conferences.
Thank you. Good luck on July 1st, man. I know that's going to be an amazing day. We'll be having somebody on that day to also discuss that celebration. Rick, thank you. Congratulations on everything you've been able to accomplish. I know, as you said, a lot of work to be done for everybody. Enjoy that event. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you. It's going to be goosebump moments on July 1. I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Rick Hart, the Director of Athletics at SMU, and what they are. And, I was some chatter in the chat room about, well, they did get part of that college football playoff money. They're going to get a percentage of that. And it doesn't matter whether it's $4 million, $6 million, or $2.5 million. It's money. It's like you said, everything matters. But also the fact that they're a part of the ACC and raising $159 million surely is going to also help with everything that they're not getting based on the ACC network and the contract with ESPN for the conference.
If you didn't know by now, SMU's worries aren't revolving around money. Eventually, you've got to make money from the ACC. You've got to get on the regular payout that the rest of the conference membership has. But I think that they went and threaded a needle, that if they had waited longer than they did, then maybe they're sitting out there in the cold for the foreseeable future. So you talk about striking while the iron's hot or threading the needle or however you want to refer it to, the move they made last summer to initially get themselves what looked like into the Pac-12 until that fell apart, but then to be able to pivot and then find a home in the ACC. Yeah, you can say, well, you're not getting paid this for the first, however many years or whatever, but that's not the point. The point right now is not about how much money they can make. Clearly, the point is how much money can we raise, put ourselves in a great position, and then the rest will come in time. And I think that they they did something that we could potentially look back on decades from now and say, like, holy crap, that was a huge moment in SMU athletics and in state of Texas athletics at the college level. And, imagine had that not happened, who knows what the landscape looks like in 5 years. But they found themselves a seat. And you can look at Memphis.